Well, that was pretty snazzy, wasn't it? I'll get the hang of that a bit more as we go on. So I did promise I'd play a longer time limit, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go over my thoughts in this game a lot more in detail, etc. This proved to be quite a popular sort of series. Now, I'm only doing this now because I don't have much time to play against you guys, but I will certainly take on you guys in a proper game at some point. Let's just hope I'm not playing a cheat. I've got my cheat alert ready, so if I think he's a cheat, this is what you're going to hear. Okay, there we go. Right, but even if he is a cheat, I don't think it matters so much. And I'm not saying my opponent is at all. It's very unlikely he is. Of course, I don't want to say that. Of course, I've been a bit unlucky with some of the players in the past. Let's just look at the game and explain as much as I can about the game. If I'm playing a computer, we're going to dive into my brain as a Grandmaster. I'm going to try to explain my thoughts and really play as well as I can. Okay, so the opening I've been playing most of the time in these 15 minutes games is this so-called fianchetto variation, which is Tiger's Modern. My opponent's taken a long time to make his moves. And Tiger's Modern is a very dynamic way of meeting e4, which I've discussed a bit about in the past, and it's GingerGM in the process of editing this DVD of Tigers, which will hopefully be available to buy soon, and it will tell you guys how to play the opening as well. Oh my words, he's using Harry against me, and to be honest, this is a pretty decent way of playing. Once I've played g6, he's trying to hit me on the side of the board. Now, as a rule, one way to try to meet a wing attack, a Harry attack, is by striking in the centre. So, I mean, I could hold this one up by playing h5 myself. That's not a bad move, but I kind of like the idea of playing a principal move and striking in the centre of the board. So I'm going to play d5 now, just trying to meet a wing attack with a central attack, and this is something well worth doing. And now he really has a decision to make. Does he capture or does he push on? And by playing the move d5, I have changed the nature of the game, because if he pushes on with e5, it becomes a closed position. So the opening, you have to adjust to changes in pawn structure. When you play a pawn move offering a different pawn structure, you have to adjust to that new pawn structure. And of course here I'm offering him to play a more closed position, so it won't be as dynamic a game, it would be a more manoeuvring game, so we have to get ready for that if he decides to push on with e5. If he wants to keep it open, he has that decision. He can take on d5. Now my idea against that, if he takes on d5, is something like knight f6. I don't want to play the Scandi, because I'm not John Bartholomew, and take on d5 my queen. I'd rather develop my pieces quickly. And my idea is, if he plays e5, I'm going to play h5 just to stop Harry having fun. I never like Harry coming at me. And then I want to secure this square, the f5 square, for my knight. So I want my knight to come round to f5. This is my positional idea, to give my knight on g8 a good square. So I'm at least... Okay, so he has closed the position. And what I mean by closed, he's locked the central pawns. My bishop now becomes bad. In actual fact, this bishop would probably rather be on f8 than on g7, because then later on when I can maybe get it out this way. So it's not great on g7, but the reason I've gone for this is that I want to stop him from moving Harry now. I don't want him to annoy me with his pawn. I'm going to play h5, so I'm really locking the pawn structure, and I'm securing this square here. You can see that both of my pawns control these two squares, g4 and e4. Why is that important? Because when I get a knight to this square, he won't be able to attack that knight with either of his pawns. And this is a good way of meeting h4, because if his pawn was still on h2, he might later on be able to play h3 and g4, and then he'd better chase my knight away. But now I have secured the f5 square as an outpost, so when I put a piece on that square, it should be able to remain on that square for the rest of the game. And like I said, the positions become closed because there's not so many pawn breaks now. Now, my ideal setup, this is where we can transfer one opening and what we've learned in one opening to another opening. This is quite like a French defence, advanced variation, or a Caracan. And one thing I'd like to do later on, I want to play c5, but I maybe don't want to rush this move. Ideally, I'd like to play knight h6, and this bishop, I'd like to exchange off the bishop on c8 for his knight on g1. You always think what pieces you want to exchange off, even at such an early stage of the game. Why do I want to do that? Because I feel I want to play the move e6 at some stage. This is a move I certainly want to play. I don't want my opponent ever to play e6 and me be forced to take with a pawn. I want to play e6, give me a nice secure centre. But if I do play e6 with my bishop on c8, then my bishop becomes a very bad piece because it's blocked in behind that pawn on e6. You know, if I put pawns on light squares, my bishop, which is a light square bishop, becomes very bad unless it's on the other side of those pawns, so on the outside. So I want to play e6, but only when this bishop has made itself either I exchange it off for this knight or I put it on f5. So actually, I'm saying I want to put a knight on f5, but maybe I want to put a bishop on that square. So I'm just going to play knight h6 first, and I'm going to leave myself options of either putting a bishop here or a knight there. I mean, ideally, like I say, I want to meet knight to f3 with bishop g4, bishop takes knight. And then, once I've exchanged off my bishop, I can then play e6. Because this is really a positional thing. You always have to think positionally all the time in chess, even if it's a tactical game. And I don't want to play e6 because my bishop is then a bad piece. I mean, another thing I could do, which is a very decent idea in these positions, if my opponent doesn't develop his knight, I could try to go b6, and at the right moment, bishop a6. This is a very good idea, and you can see this a lot in the French defence, because in that variation, I want to swap off my light square bishop for his light square bishop. So again, I'm trying to get rid of my dubious bishop. Why do I want to swap off the bishop on f1? Because this is often his best, what we call minor piece, because his light square bishop later on might be able to start some kind of attack against my pawn structure. Okay, so he's gone bishop d3. So he's avoiding moving his knight. Now, rather than move my knight to f5, it makes more sense to try to swap my bishop off straight away for his bishop. The only thing I have to consider is if I do go bishop there, he captures, I go knight takes. Am I worried about e6? Often a move to watch out for when your bishop's not there. I don't think so. I mean, it's interesting. He can play like that. He can swap bishops and go e6, doing quite an interesting pawn sacrifice. But he hasn't got any other pieces developed to increase the pressure on the position. So I don't think it'll be a great sacrifice for him to do. It's one of those things you really got to keep an eye on, this e6 move from my opponent. Okay, so now I'm certainly quite happy, because I can play e6. Maybe I'll play it here. Maybe I'll do it in a minute. And do I want to swap bishops off first? Well, if I go... No, I don't think so. I think I can play it now. And we can see now my bishop. I've managed to swap off these two pieces. And these slight positional things certainly improve my position. Just slightly. Get rid of your bad pieces for your opponent's good pieces. And another thing I think long-term I want to be doing here, I've got to look at pawn breaks that I have in this rather closed position. And like a French defence, the two pawn breaks that I have are c5, trying to target d4. This is often a square, the one I've highlighted here, that I want to target. I want to make this square weak and put every piece to attack that square. So a knight on f5, attack that square. A knight on c6, attack that square. A queen on b6, attack that square. So that's one idea, to go c5. Another break, just like the French defence, is f6. Because if I go f6, I want to attack the front of his pawn chain, e5. Generally attacking the front of your opponent's pawn chain, his most advanced pawn, is quite a risky thing to do because you open up your position. Normally, well, this is often the case in the middle game or even the end game, you want to attack the base of his pawn structure, which in this position would be completely irrelevant for me because the base of his pawn chain is the pawn on b2. This pawn here on b2. But there's no point me trying to attack that now. It's too early in the game, and later on it would be hard to attack it. But the reason, as a general tip, you want to attack the base of the pawn structure is because the base of the pawn structure is often it can't be defended by another pawn. Because you can't defend b2 with another pawn. You can defend all these other pawns here in the centre are defended by another pawn, so they're not quite as weak. Okay, now my opponent's played queen c2. I'm not sure how that helps him. So I'm very tempted here. I'm just going to consider it to continue with my plan of c5. Now I could also castle. Now I think castling is quite safe. I think I'm going to castle here because I've blockaded the king side. So my king, I went a bit green there in the video. It makes me look a lot whiter, I'm sure, this video than I actually am. Maybe I just look like a vampire permanently. I don't know. I've gone a bit bright. Okay, I think actually before I commit to c5, let's just do a bit more development, shall we? So yeah, why not? Why shouldn't I be castling? There's no reason not to castle here because now f6 increases in strength. Okay, maybe there was a mistake there, actually. That may have been a mistake. Because I wanted to meet bishop g5 with f6. Now, that was a slight error. I can't, and now he's done it, because if I go f6 now, he will take, and I wanted to play bishop takes f6. That was a bad error on my part. I can't play f6 now, because he will take, and if bishop takes f6, my knight is hanging. So that was very silly of me. I shouldn't have done that. It's maybe not the end of the world, but it was one of those little things which you might regret later on. Okay, now let's see. Do I want to move my queen? I think I do. I'm going to have to move it somewhere like here. So I didn't want to do that. That was silly. A silly idea of mine. I think I'm going to have to rely on c5 now. I'm even wondering if I should have kept this square for my knight. So again, I could have kept the option of f6. Castling was a little bit premature. But okay, I still think it's an even position here. I think it's now time for me to seriously start attacking this central position with a move like c5. I need to get some active counterplay here. Because I can't play f6 anymore. Because I've ruled that out with my castling prematurely. I need to concentrate on my next idea, which is, of course, c5 here. And trying to break open, create a weakness, attack his pawns in the centre, and get a plan going. In a closed position, always look at your ways you can attack your opponent's structure. It's quite funny. I see my face is going... I'm watching a video and it seems to be going from a shade of green back to a shade of colour. No idea why that's happening. Doesn't matter too much, does it? What colour shade I am. I'll try to fix that for the next one. Okay, so c5 is certainly a move I want to play. Maybe, therefore, he should go b4. That would be a good positional idea. If he played b4, I would... consider a5. Another thing I'm considering here is to exchange bishops off and go knight to f5. Just get my knight to that square, because then I might better play f6 again later on. So that seems like a good idea. But I think my main idea is to get this c5 break in. Just to really... I need to take target at his pawns in the centre. When you're lacking space... I am lacking space because he's got this e5 pawn. If you want to know more about the pawn on e5, read Nimzovich. The first game in his book, My System, I think it's called, really discusses the pros and cons of the forward pawn, this very advanced pawn. It can be a real thorn in my side, and it can be a great starting point for white to build up an attack. because you can see he attacks this weak f6 square. If he can ever get a knight into f6, that'd be fantastic for him. So it really is something that can be very strong. So that's why I need to strike against it. Okay, f3. He's trying to maybe play the move g4 here. Now, am I worried about that at the moment? No. I have to play c5. I have to continue my counterplay. It's clear he's going to try to start an attack at some point, maybe rook g1 and g4. So I can't just sit there and wait for him to come at me on the king side. I need to start play in the center, and I need to start targeting his pawns. So I need to get my knight here and maybe line up my rook against his queen. Get some active counterplay going. Now, if he takes here, this is probably quite a good option. I wanted to take with my knight, but then he goes g4. So maybe he should be taking here now. That's quite annoying, his idea that he's trying to play here. Because I probably have to take with my e-pawn, because I don't want him to play g4. But then my knight's very bad. I mean, if queen d2, I have king h7. But my knight has become a bad piece. So I think my opponent should certainly capture on f5. Because if I take with a knight, he can then play g4. And I don't like that position for me. Because he's opening up my king with his rook on a dangerous h-file. So that's why if he takes on f5, I want to keep my king side a bit more closed. And I probably want to take with the e-pawn. But this is not certainly ideal in my position. He's taken a lot of time, though, to consider his moves, which is good, you know. He should obviously been taking his time in a position like this. But I think just taking on f5. Okay, so he's gone here with the idea of pressurizing my knight. Now, if I take on d3, he takes on h6. We have a number of exchanges. Could be very interesting. My other option is just to go king h7. King h7 is the safer option. But taking on d3, I think, is the move I prefer to play. Now, takes on h6, I take on e2. And I get enough counterplay in time. Okay, I'm going to take on d3. Because it seems to me that I get enough counterplay because of my c5 move if he tries to start an attack with bishop h6. Now, he could try to start an attack with bishop takes h6 and g4. My response to that is going to be to take his knight off in e2 and then to hit d4, to pressurize everything on d4. I'm trying to meet his wing attack in traditional sense with a central attack, and I think this is very sensible way to continue in this position. And the point is, if he takes with the queen on d3, I don't have to waste a tempo by playing king to h7, and every tempo is important. Okay, so he hasn't done that. Now, do I play knight to c6 first, or do I take on d4? Now, knight to c6, he can take on h6 and go g4. Of course, this is risky. I have to take there and hopefully get enough counterplay. I think I'm going to go knight c6 first. Why am I not taking on d4 first? Because when he goes pawn takes d4, I give his knight on b1 a natural square to develop to. By playing knight to c6 first, his knight on b1 can't develop to c3. If you'd imagine I took on d4 first of all, I give his knight a much better square to move into. I don't want to allow that. Why should I give him that good square? Now, again, ideas with g4 is certainly what's worrying me the most here. Maybe he takes on h6 and then goes g4. Now, I think I'm okay because my development is all right. And if he has to give up his dark square bishop and he lets me keep my dark square bishop, he's going to find it very hard to checkmate me in those positions. But I do think his position is absolutely fine here. I've played a couple of slight inaccuracies, which I'll go over afterwards later on. The good thing is he's spending so long on his moves, it gives me time to discuss what I'm thinking in quite some depth without spending a lot of my time. And you can see his time is clearly ticking down very quickly. But yeah, I've certainly made some slight inaccuracies in the opening and early middle game stages, because I should have met bishop g5 with f6. That was clear. Everything else is okay. Now the point of the board I want to attack, d4, is quite well defended by my opponent. He's defending it with his knight and queen, so I can't get much counterplay there. So what other plans am I thinking of here? Well, again, I really want to play f6, but it looks so hard to play. His f3 move was very clever. Okay, so now he's attacking my knight. He's reinforcing the threat. King h7 looks natural. Knight f5 I don't like because he goes g4. No. I think I'm forced to play king h7. This looks like a forced option for me now. And now he can certainly consider g4. This is very scary if he plays g4. Because if I take on g4, he pushes Harry, h5. And I don't like that because he's going to have his rook and all his pieces lined up against h6 there. So g4, very scary move. I'm going to have to try. I can't take on that square. I need to get some counterplay going. How? Well, can I play f6 and give up the exchange with rook takes f6? Maybe I have to. But no, I can't, because he takes everything off and he goes g5 at the end. So g4 is a very scary move. I just don't... Oh, okay, so he's prepared it first. Now, I think this is a little mistake. Every slight loss of tempo in chess makes your position that little bit worse. And okay, g4 is still scary, but I think he could have played it straight away. Now, right, what am I going to do against this? Now, I really think I should be trying to play f6. Now, should I sacrifice the exchange? I think I should. f6 takes, rook takes, bishop takes f6, because then I generate a little bit of counterplay. He's still a bit behind development. I have e5, I have h4, I have all my pieces developed. I like this idea. I'm going to go for the most active play because my opponent's king is stuck here and he's got a little bit of funny pieces if I can open it up. So I can't take with a bishop because I lose my knight. My idea, of course, is to give up the exchange here and play rook takes. It's only exchange. I'm giving up 2 points, but I'm hoping through this sacrifice my position will burst into life. And it becomes a bit stronger now that his rook's on this square, because when my bishop takes, I'll be hitting the pawn here. My bishop will be increasing pressure on d4. I'm getting ready to play e5, and he still hasn't got his king safe. So this sacrifice I like a lot. With my knight coming to f5 later on and increasing the pressure here. This little 2-point sacrifice should bring my pieces into life. Now, the computer might not agree with this. We're not using the computer to discuss ideas. We're discussing it as a grandmaster. I'm telling you what a grandmaster would think like. And I think that's more useful than what a computer would tell you. A computer wouldn't tell you why. Why did I play this move? It would probably never come up with that idea. But lots of grandmasters would. Why? Because it gives me active play. It gives me the initiative. And it allows all my pieces to burst into life. You remember what I said earlier about my opponent having a pawn on e5? This pawn really cramped my position. One of my main breaks has always been f6. I really like this sacrifice. I get rid of his main frontal attacking unit, his advanced e-pawn, something Nimzovich discussed in some depth. Get his book, My System, if you want to know a bit more about that. And my position should come to life now. So bishop takes here. Maybe, okay, so he's defending now. But I have a lot of natural moves to increase the pressure. Knight f5, natural move, increase the pressure. e5, open up the position there. These 2 moves are critical to me, critical to my thoughts here. Which one do I want to go for? Now I could take, is he really going to take on c5? He might well do. If e5, he might take on c5, then I can go d4. I'm starting to get a good attack coming. Knight f5, will he take there? He might do again. Then do I play d4 in that position? Do I have something more dynamic? Maybe I have knight e5 there. And then okay, I like this move. Let's bring another piece into the attack. The reason I'm playing this is because I don't want to commit a pawn to this square, because my knight wants to come to this square and then maybe into c4. So I'm just trying to activate all my pieces. I bring another piece into the center of the board. At this moment in time, I'm threatening to win one pawn back by capturing on d4. So this move looks like a good move to me. And you can see this little sacrifice, the energy of my pieces now. My bishop has come to life. My knights have come to life. Everything is starting to flow much more natural. I think my opponent is having, playing much too slow here. So we might not see the natural end of this game, unfortunately. But okay, well, I'm going to continue with my plan of putting my knight here, because then I threaten a very big check here. And also my knight wants to then come to c4. So I'm just getting the maximum from my pieces. Threatening here and just trying to get them to the best squares possible. When I get a knight to c4, I also take control of the e3 square. And I think once I do that, then I start moving my pawns up the board and I try to open up lines towards his king. Okay, so he's found some defensive idea. He's defending this with his king. Now, before I go knight c4, because the threat, of course, is stronger than execution, can I do something even stronger? Now, I'm thinking if I go rook c1, f8 here, bringing my last piece into the attack, I may be eventually threatening something nasty on f3. For example, if I move my rook to f8, am I threatening knight takes pawn? So let's just picture some ideas I have. Pawn takes, bishop takes pawn check. Then when he moves his king, I can take on f3 with my knight. I mean, this looks so natural, bringing my last piece in. Now, I have other ideas. Do I move my queen to f7 with the same idea? Because then queen takes would be incredibly strong in that position. Now, okay, well, let's just think of the pros and cons of this. My opponent will probably meet this always with his knight coming to this square, knight to d4. So here, knight takes, pawn takes, knight takes here. Very strong idea. Queen here, knight here, takes, pawn takes, knight here. Again, this looks like a very strong idea. Now, it feels more natural to bring my rook to f8 than bringing my queen, because I'm bringing another piece in. But after rook here, am I actually threatening anything? So I'm threatening takes, knight takes here. Well, bishop takes, check here. I mean, I'd like to get my queen into f3 rather than my rook. He's always got knight f4, hasn't he? But if he plays knight f4, can I go knight c4 and e5? Okay, so this is what he should be doing, knight f4. So if I play something, rook f8, or... Okay, let's go rook f8. I think he needs to block up the f-file. So he plays knight to f4. That stops on my threats. Now, can I still sacrifice then? Or can I play knight here? Well, okay, let's try to play knight here and e5. So... Okay, rook f8, knight f4, knight c4. And then I played this move here next. Very strong initiative. Okay, look, I'm just going to bring my last piece in. I'm not going to calculate too deeply. I don't think I necessarily need to calculate too deeply in this position. I think it's more important to bring all my pieces to life. The position plays itself. My opponent doesn't have any threats, so I don't need to concern myself about any threats. I think it's much more important just to bring my last piece in. And now that all my pieces are doing something in the position, now I should be calculating some final kill here, because every piece is now alive. So now I should be calculating. My idea was knight takes h4, pawn takes, bishop takes check, then king to this square. And I can take on f3 with a big attack. Rook f1, e4, rook takes f3, queen to here check, rook to g3, bishop takes g3, knight takes g3, h4. Very, very interesting. So I'm looking at knight takes h4 here as my first tactic. Now, do I have knight takes f3? King takes f3. And then do I have some big move there? Well, my bishop's a little bit in the way. No, I don't think that's good. I've also got, don't forget, knight c4. in this position as well. Knight c4 and coming into e3 because I'll be attacking his queen. But I want to go for the most brutal idea. Knight takes h4. This was indeed my idea after all. So knight takes h4, pawn takes, bishop takes check. Now the process of elimination, what can he do? Well, if he moves his knight to g3, rook takes here check is going to be strong. If he moves his rook there, I can still get a good attack. Is it good enough though? So actually takes check, rook to this square. Maybe his best option. Because rook check, king g2. I'm going to go for it anyway. I'm going to go for this one. Because, okay, I'm going to be a whole rook down. But the lines I was just analysing in my head there. Again, if you can't calculate all the way, you don't need to. Go with your instinct sometimes. And my instinct tells me this should be at least a very dangerous attack to him. Because if I can if I can get my attack in quickly, his pieces over here are out of the game. So it doesn't matter I'm a rook down at the moment if I can blast through. And the lines I've just been calculating here is if he moves his king here, I've got knight takes f3 and e5 trying to bring my queen into the attack. So I was just mentally preparing that. I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to. Okay, so the only line I was wanting to double check was knight takes rook f1 and then e5, rook takes f3, queen check, rook here takes, knight takes, and then pawn here with a very good attack. Now, I've got other interesting options here. Rook takes here. No, let's get the knight in. We don't need to consider this too much. We get the knight into the attack, of course, because I also have ideas of knight e1 here, but my main idea, I want to free up the e-pawn so my queen can enter into the attack. And this, what I'm doing now is really, it's basically, I'm doing a mix of calculation and instinct. And also I've now seen that another thing I've got after rook takes, I don't have to go check straight away. I can actually play rook takes rook, king takes, queen h3. Boom! So my instinct has served me well here. And I think his position is completely defenseless, even though he's timed down. We'll have a look at the other variations later on. But here I have a number of good moves. I have now my queen entering in. Looks very tempting into the position. It's got to be an unstoppable attack. My other option is to take here. Rook takes, king takes. My queen comes into the attack with check. That should be very strong. But it seems so natural. Queen here threatening to take this. He has to go queen to f2. Surely I'm winning there somewhere. How? I'm not sure how. I can play e4, should be very strong. I can play bishop takes, queen takes, knight check, king h2. And then I go rook takes f1. Okay, that looks like it's winning. So I'm going to double check because now I have to make sure my calculations are right. Queen g4, queen f2. Bishop takes g3, queen takes g3, knight h4 check. King h2 forced. Rook takes h1. Should be winning. And it simplifies. I don't need to overcomplicate. I'm just going to get my last piece in. To me, it looks like his only move is queen f2 because I'm threatening queen takes knight here, which is going to be winning. I've calculated that after queen to this square, I can play bishop takes, and I think I'm winning. Let's just, well, I hope I'm winning. Otherwise, I've done something completely wrong. So I'm going to play it quickly. I've already calculated this in advance. Now, this move here was the move I was relying on to give me the win, and hopefully we'll see why this gives me a win. I'm attacking his queen. He only has one square he can move his king to. I get my rook back, and the reason I assume this is winning is because in the position now, my rook ties up his pieces. So again, it's all about these two pieces here. They can't move. They haven't been able to move for the whole game. I'm not going to let him move my rook from this. Even if he took my pawn there, my e-pawn with a queen. But next move, I have knight c2, and knight c2, of course, is going to be winning the whole game. So actually, very interesting game there. Okay, well, let's have a look at the key moments from that game. Well, certainly some key moments to analyse. Now, my opponent played the Harry attack quite early on. Now, when your opponent does push this, I haven't talked about how you should defend against this. I've only been on the attacking side. What should you do? You have 3 options. Option number 1, you ignore it, which I don't like doing. I don't want that pawn to come up here and start attacking me. Option number 2, you block it. So I could play h5 here. Not a bad move. Option number 3, I try to meet this h5 move with g5. So I could play h6, and the idea is to play h5, g5. That's an okay option, but I don't like it when there's a knight still on g1. For example, if I go here, 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 I think this is much better idea for black when there's already a knight on f3, because I don't like it in these positions because white can play f4, and I don't like that kind of position. So I went for option number 2 to meet it with h5, but first of all I struck in the centre, so d5. And now I think I explained most things okay here, so we won't dwell on this too much. Now, my first mistake is certainly castling too early, because if he plays bishop g5 at any point now, while I haven't castled, I can play f6, and this is a move I want to do anyway to get rid of the front of his attacking structure. And the point is now if he takes, I can take with my bishop, and my rook defends my knight, and my pieces become freer. So my first mistake was certainly castling in this position. I should probably just go c5 straight away. Why not? So I castled, and now I have to put my queen on a bad square. And I think now he could even be better. f3, a very good move. He's getting ready to play this move. I have to start on a counter-attack. And now the key moment where he starts to go wrong is around here. Now, any loss of time in a game of chess is a big mistake. Now, you have to be willing to be brave when you're playing chess. And the move I was certainly concerned about was g4 here. And I didn't like the line, if I take on g4, h5. This looks horrendous to me, because he's threatening just to open up the rook. Harry attack has been too strong here. I don't like this. Had he played this move instead of what he played in the game, well, he played in the game, let me just have a look, sorry, a bit further on. He wasted a tempo with this move, and then I take control. Had he played g4, well, it could have been a totally different story. I'd probably have to ignore that pawn, but then he starts opening up my king. He has a big advantage. Now, I think because when you sense the danger in your position, this is the thing that a lot of low-rated players don't do. You've got to sense the danger. Now, I'm sensing this g4 could put me in a lot of trouble. So when you sense danger, when things are starting to go a little bit wrong, you should look for drastic options. My next idea is quite drastic, but it's also very natural. f6. I give up the exchange, and the point of this is, well, rather than defending some attack with g4, I start my own attack. My bishop comes to life. I have potential of e5. More pressure on d4. I'm attacking h4. My rook comes to an open file. And you can see just how this sacrifice works so well. It wouldn't be so strong if my opponent had castle, but let's think what's wrong with his position. He hasn't developed. He never developed these two pieces for the whole game. He didn't get a chance. So this was a very good sacrifice. And again, a good tip there, if you feel like your position's just getting worse and worse and you're going down without a fight, put up a fight. Do something drastic. Sacrifice. And now, well, I play normal moves. I bring all my pieces into the attack. And now every single piece is working well. And because all my pieces are coordinating so well, there has to be some big breakthrough here. I went for this one because without too much calculation, I just calculated some key lines. And the only line I wasn't sure about here was rook g3. I was pretty sure that after rook king to g2, I'm winning. Now let's just have a look. Now knight to g3 I thought was losing because I go rook takes f3 in this position, and I win this piece here. Because king g2, I just play rook takes knight check. I'm only the exchange down, well I'm not even material down. All my pieces are attacking his lone king. I must be winning. If his king moves anywhere else, it's the same story. So I calculated this. Now, if rook to g3, I was a little bit more unclear about this one. This, I thought, was his best defense. Okay, I used a bit of time advantage as well here. I did. I thought I'd just keep piling on the pressure. And it should be good anyway. But what is the way to win this position? Well, I wanted to play either knight or rook takes f3 here. Now, let's just think. I'm just trying to remember what I was calculating this position. Well, I think knight takes f3 was my main choice here, because I'm threatening a deadly discovered check with my knight. I want to get my e-pawn moving so my queen can come in. And it also stops in going king g2 because I have knight e1 check. So I think this looks now, the more I look at it, the more helpless my opponent actually looks here. It looks like he shouldn't have any defense in this position. Okay, so probably I'm winning there. And to be honest, the way the game went, things looked incredibly good as well. We had the king come here, but now when my knight comes in, e5, bringing my last piece into the attack. Now, when I originally went for this idea, I think he has to go rook takes g3. We saw what happened with other ideas here. Queen g4 is a deadly threat. This is his last try. And now, originally, when I went into this variation, I was only looking at queen g4 check. But it shows you, if you follow your instincts and basic calculations, things can improve as you go on. And only here did I realise that queen g4 check might be winning, but it's a simpler option. Rook takes f3 is a much simpler way to win. My point is, I've got rook f2 check, I've got queen g4 check as my major threats. All my pieces are attacking. If he takes here, well, this is going to lead to, surely, to checkmate. Well, actually, was there an even better way of doing that? Did I have queen g4 check first? Let's have a look. He's got knight here, check, king g2. Surely this is winning. Yeah, it should be. Queen here, check. Now, king d1, I have queen e1 checkmate. And if he goes here, I have e4 checkmate. Poetry on the board there. And of course, these lines, I didn't calculate everything, but I calculated enough. That's all you need to do when you're going for these combinations. And remember, tactics have to have a good foundation. Tactics don't just come from nowhere. You have to build up your position first. Give your pieces energy, which I did. Look at your opponent's bad pieces, which I did. Look at your opponent's weakened king. It's little factors that make tactics work. And then you can follow your instinct, as I did there, but you have to calculate as well. Some minute calculations. All my calculations looked okay, hence why this game worked pretty well. Well, again, thank you for watching. This waterfall here is actually another picture which I took. That's a picture of Iceland, a lovely waterfall there. And I'm just going to leave you now with another vlog, I think they call it, a video recording of my time in Iceland. This next one is in the south of Iceland, in a place called Vik, on the famous Black Sands beach. This is where Game of Thrones actually had some of its scenes filmed. Obviously, this is not chess related, but if you want to see a bit of the story, I'll include this here. Go to my Facebook page if you want to see more. And well, I hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please give me any tips to how I could keep improving this channel. I do listen to you guys, and I want to improve all the time. Thanks for now. Until late time. What does that mean? Until next time, I'll leave you with this little video clip I did. So thank you so much for viewing. Goodbye for now, and I'll try to get around to answering comments soon. Oh, I've got to get the video. Okay, that was typical. Right, I'm going to get the video. Unbelievably, this is typically, the kind of thing that I'm always doing. Okay, let me just get this video up. You can stop the show now if you want to. Not the most professional of doing things. I had it and actually deleted it, so it'll be in my recycle bin now. Oh, blooming hell, Simon! How typical are you? Okay, recycle bin, a recycling bin. I must have got rid of it somewhere. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to. Come on, recycle bin. Where are you, video? I'm gonna give up soon. Where are you? Oh, I had it all prepared, and then I think because I had some slight problems with my computer. Where are you? Is that you? Is that you there? No, that's not you. Oh, God. Ah, there we are. I believe this is the one. Okay, let's try this one, guys. Typical. Let's try this one. Is this the video? Can we do this? Let's see this. There we go. Good morning to you. It's a Saturday morning, quite early. I got up early because it was blooming cold in the back of my pickup, should I say. I forgot to turn the heating on, so I've been a bit freezing. And here I am in beautiful Vik, which is the southernmost area of Iceland. It's famous for its black sands, so you've got black sand beach here, and it's a very beautiful area. You've got a glacier on the other side, but let me just give you a view around so you can see what I can see. And let's start with these outcrops over here, and you can see that is the famous black sands beach there, and I'll zoom in so you can see a bit more of those rocks, should we say. So okay, there you go. I'll take a little stroll along there in a minute, and you can see that goes around, and then you go back into sort of Vik town there with the glacier behind. That's one of the big famous glaciers there. And then if you go along here, absolutely beautiful, you can see the sun has come out, and all the way over there you can see like the furthest kind of outcrop of rock is a famous, used to be a famous Viking fort, so I might walk to the top of that later on. But let's continue going around and come back to here. So there we have it for now. That is Vik, and this is me, Simon, GingerGM, on my little adventures on a Saturday now. Got to be commentating in a couple of days, so quite refreshing. It's bloody cold, it's about -2. I need some gloves, haven't got any, but I'll try to pick some up later. Anyway, cheers, over and out, until next time.